Whenever I tell people I'm doing an extended fast, they always ask me the same thing. Why? And it's a great question. I don't subscribe to any particular religion. It's not for the health benefits. I'm not trying to lose weight, although those are all oftentimes why people fast. But for me, the short answer is it's complicated. There are some potential health benefits to it, at least from some of the research that I've seen, but that's not why I do it personally. And I'm actually currently on the tail end of a 3-day fast. So this night for dinner, I'll be breaking my fast. But right now, I'm getting close to about like 70 something hours in. So if I'm a little loopy, I apologize, but bear with me. The first reason why I do this is an exercise in appreciating life. And that might sound strange, but as someone who grew up in the US, and I feel like a lot of the Western world, there's a lot of an emphasis, especially in the States, on more things, more fame, more attention. It's about abundance, right? Having a growth mindset. I'm into the growth mindset stuff too, but the whole abundance piece for me, I think can sometimes be a little tricky. And because I come from that culture, I have that wired in me that for me, when I find I'm actually the most at peace, I feel the most focused, I feel the most whole is actually in the disciplined pursuit of less. That's the reason why I'm into minimalism, is I find that it just helps me focus on what matters. I wear pretty much the same clothes all the time. That's why I shave my head, keep it super simple. That's why I live very simply, because I find that rigidness, as weird as it is, but being strict in certain regards allows me the freedom to think about other things creatively that to me are simply more important. I also find in my fulfillment of life, it's less to keep track of. It's a much more kind of a focused, streamlined experience, which sounds super optimization-y white boy, I know. The fasting for me really helps me appreciate food and eating and being present, because I'm an ambitious guy, right? So I'm on the go. I want to do stuff. I want to get stuff accomplished. It's always the next thing. What's next? Where am I going? And the idea of chasing more is something I'm incredibly susceptible to. I've spent the last decade trying to be a rapper, right? It's that fame and attention that I crave those things too. The fasting helps me dial that all back a little bit and be very present, especially with food. When it comes to fasting, I think you can apply this to any part of your life. I think there's a real benefit in removing commodities. I think this is the same reason why people go camping. Of course, you want to connect with nature, but when you don't have your shower, when you don't have your food available, when you have to work for everything, man, if you've ever been camping, you know what I'm talking about. You come back from a camping trip and you just feel so appreciative of being able to turn on a faucet and have running water, clean water, or a hot shower that I think a lot of us take for granted, myself included. That's why I'm doing this, because there's always food around. When I don't have food, I realize how much I appreciate it. Even the idea of grocery stores is fascinating. It's like there's a place you go and they just have all of the food. Or restaurants. You just show up to a place, you point at a piece of paper, and then people bring you cooked food. It's so cool. The idea of restaurants and grocery stores is so cool. I love food. And so by intentionally depriving myself of it, it really helps me foster the appreciation. And I think that this goes to a lot of different aspects of life. That having this hard reset just helps you, at least for a time, appreciate something more. To me, even if you've ever done any fasting or have gone without food, even simple things like vegetables and fruits taste so much richer. Like a plain tomato, you'll really be able to taste it. But we're so indoctrinized, especially in the States, with like all this sugar and different things in our food that I think we really lose how to taste and the real flavor of things, because everything's infused with all these different things to like wire your brain to make it crazy. But like real plain food, if you take a break from food period and sugar and all these things, like real food actually tastes delicious. It's just stepping away from it for a bit that I find really helpful. That's the first reason. The second reason that I often fast is simply to prove myself that I can. I'm not a tough guy. I don't pretend to play one on the internet, but there is something very powerful about physical and mental toughness. And I'm not the biggest guy. I do work out, I strength train, I box. The physical piece to me is actually second to the mental piece. And if you've ever fasted before, you realize that it is a mental game. I think a lot of this life is actually a mental game. And building that mental resilience, building that mental strength to me is very important. We know that building your body physically is doable and important, that it takes consistent work in the gym if you want to build your muscles and be physically healthy. We get that. For some reason, listen, this is for me, this isn't for you, I'm not telling you what to do. I lose track of the fact that the same needs to be done mentally. That our brain, our strength, our mental fortitude, our mental toughness atrophies just like a physical muscle. And so this is something that needs to be trained. And when I say difficult or doing hard things, this is relative, right? I'm still sitting in a nice, comfortable apartment recording on nice technology. There is something to be said though for putting yourself in situations that is difficult in order to see your limits. And to me, I like to test my limits, both physically and mentally, because when I brush up against those limits, I can say, oh, okay, that's where my edge is right now. What can I do to maybe push past that to grow into a better man, to be the man that I want to be? This is something that has really changed my life, is this idea of mental toughness. And maybe that's a bad word because I don't like the idea of toughness because it feels weird, but I guess mental fortitude. And to really prove to yourself that you are capable of doing difficult things. For me, this really changed my relationship with hunger, with temptation, with urges, with emotions in all of those areas. And not just around food, right? That's around food, pleasure, sex, women, dessert, being angry, wanting to fight. All these very kind of primal urges and feelings that we have are actually just that. They're feelings. Understanding that those feelings aren't necessarily facts and getting a better control over that and understanding of that for myself has been an incredibly useful tool. But that's a tool I have to practice to keep the sword sharp. That's not just something that comes naturally to me, because we all have that internal dialogue when you feel that pang of hunger. Oh, I'm hungry. If you haven't eaten for 3 days, you realize that when you feel those pangs of hunger that come in maybe 2, 3, 4 hours after your last meal on a normal day, it's not actually real hunger. That is a trigger either from a time or visual cue that you're hungry. After you've proven to yourself that you can go days without food, you start to understand what hunger really is. And even if you've done any fasting, you realize that even comes in waves. There will be moments throughout the fast when I'll be like, whoa, I'll smell food, or I'll think about food. It might be my normal meal times and I'm like, man, and your brain will start to play tricks on you. It'll try to talk you out of it. Yeah, just maybe this much, or maybe you shouldn't do the whole extended fast that you wanted to do, or you know what I'm talking about. If you've tried this before, your brain will try to mess with you. You realize those are simply signals, but not things that you have to act on. And so constantly trying to push myself in this regard for me really helps me understand that my body will signal to me that it's ready to quit before I'm even close to my edge. If you've done anything difficult physically, if you run a marathon, trained for a triathlon, trained martial arts, you understand there's a point when your brain will trigger to your body, I'm done. It's time to quit. This is painful. So let's stop. There's no reason to continue. There's a piece to that. You understand your physical limits are so much greater than you actually feel like they are, because we often get the signal to quit much earlier than our actual limits are. But once you've been able to push past those limits, it really opens up new territories and ways of thinking about everything else. I'm able to take this idea of fasting, doing hard things, and I translate that into other pieces of my life. In doing so, and doing a lot of these hard things as well, again, it makes you very present. It's very difficult to think about other things when you are in these intense moments of difficulty that I actually really love, because your future doesn't matter, mistakes made in the past doesn't matter, who your ex is marrying doesn't matter. It's like, I'm right here, I need to make it through this moment. There's this intense clarity and focus to being right here, right now, that is a beautiful thing, and I don't find often. Like I said, as someone who's often kind of future pacing, again, these difficult moments, the fasting, it all helps me bring me back to being present and open up this other part of your mind to understand what you're capable of. And so when people ask me why, simple answer, a lot of times I'll just jokingly, like, I'm trying to get a six pack. The health piece is there and I'm nerdy into that, but it's more about constantly challenging myself to push my boundaries, see what my limits are, and push past them in small incremental ways so that I can continue to grow as a man. And it also really helps me cultivate this deep appreciation for the smaller moments to be present in life. Not saying this for you, but if you want to give it a shot, you know where to find me. If you have questions about fasting, feel free to drop comments below or reach out to me, kia@kiaorion.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you want more content like this, like and subscribe, and I'll check you in a minute.